The Badgers get some potentially great news. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Thank you for being here. Today's episode, we're talking Billy Edwards Jr., update on his injury, best players on offense and defense out of week one, some big picture thoughts. First, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let's start with the big news. So Billy Edwards Jr., there's been some updates. I'm going to throw the first one that I saw up on the screen. Quote, sources, Wisconsin quarterback Billy Edwards had a clean MRI today, and his status is week to week, which eliminated the worst fears after leaving the opener with a non-contact injury. He sprained his knee against Miami University, and a precise timetable for return is not known. That is per Pete Thamel on Twitter. Okay. Whew. Let's breathe for a second on this one, because I got to be honest, this is the best possible news we could get right here. When I see, and I apologize for my voice a little bit, I'm coming off Camp Randall, so my voice might be a little strained, but when you see a player go down non-contact, just as a fan, man, you just think the worst. And I thought Danny O'Neill did a really admirable job for coming in as the backup quarterback, doing what he had to do. Made some mistakes, but he also, that dude plays, I talked about on the post-game show, he plays with all heart, all grit. But this team needs Billy Edwards. They need his leadership. He's a little bigger. I think he's got a little better arm. He's a big part of this. And to think it's week to week, potentially, again, nothing confirmed, but it sounds like multiple places have kind of talked about, like, it sounds week to week. Wisconsin dodged the bullet. That should make Badger fans thrilled. That's massive. Because losing your quarterback after an entire offseason and building around him as the leader, it just would have already cast this shadow over a season. And it would have, I could feel it when I was in the crowd, the people around me, the fans around me. One guy just, you could tell, like, it like killed his soul to see your quarterback get hurt again. So take a breath. Okay, so he's going to be back. Now, what does this actually mean? Let's talk about the mechanics of what I think this looks like. Week to week, obviously, you have Middle Tennessee next week. You have Bama. Then you have Maryland and a bye. I fully understand players. You only get so many opportunities to play college football. And I would never, I'm never the guy to try to advocate to take one of those opportunities away. But I think even if he's close, I think I think you have to sit him next week. I don't think you can play him against Middle Tennessee. Even if he could go out there and play, even if he tries to talk himself into the game, it's like, it's almost like having a pitcher who you need for game one of the opening round of the playoffs. You got to be careful with him. And I don't say that lightly, because I'm not a proponent of, I understand how hard players work to get into these moments. I understand from talking to them the hours they put in. Obviously, I've never been in that situation, but you got to be smart here. You have to be smart, because this is a player who hurt his knee in camp and then hurt his knee again week one. To think there's not some type of correlation there is probably a little, I mean, you're probably fooling yourself, which means this is probably something that could linger the entire year. You may not have 100% Billy. And a lot of teams don't have 100% pieces, but it means you have to be smart with it. Wisconsin should be able to beat Middle Tennessee, just like they did against Miami of Ohio, with Danny O'Neill, a running game, and defense. You let Billy Edwards rest up, and then you make a decision for Bama. I mean, you could make the argument that you would want, do you save him for Maryland? That you're probably not going to beat Bama either way. But I don't like that argument. I think if Billy's ready to play, you sit him for next week and you get him out there for Bama. I think that's what I would do if he's ready. Now, if it's still lingering into Bama, you don't rush it, right? Because that's an out-of-conference game on the road against a defense that's going to be hellaciously tough. So if he's 100%, you play him against Bama, because you got to throw your punches, man. You only get so many games. You're going on to Brian Denny on a national stage. If you have a chance to compete there, you do it 100%. But if he's not full there either, I think you wait until the Big Ten Conference. You have Maryland. And then worst case, if it is a week-to-week thing, you get through this first block of the season, then you have a bye and you get him back. Again, these are kind of gaming scenarios out, but no matter what, the news that our worst fears, it sounds like, aren't true. And that's massive for this team. It's massive just for the fact of the way players talk about Billy Edwards. He is the leader on this team. He's one of the captains who went to media day. He's one of the vocal, focus points of this offense. You just need him out there for those intangible aspects that he brings, for the leadership and the experience and the belief that the other teammates have in him. It's not that they don't have that in Daniel Neal. Billy's just played more ball. He's been around a little longer, and he's really taking control of this team and taking control of the offense aspect of it. So it's a huge deal that it's not as bad as we initially feared. Now, going forward, we talked about it. What's the game plan look like if you do have to rest Billy Edwards for a couple games? If you do have to, let's say best case he's back in a couple weeks. That means for a couple weeks, Daniel Neal's your guy. And I thought Daniel Neal played pretty darn well last night. I thought he moved the ball well with his feet. He had some throws he would want to take back, but he wasn't getting the majority of the reps. He did show the ability. And I'll say this, I heard one of the Miami guys kind of coming down as I was going up into the press box, and he was pretty impressed with Danny's toughness and his feet. Like there's moxie there. There's the ability to win some ugly games there because he can move the ball in ways that I don't know if Braden Locke could last year. But going forward, if this is going to be Daniel Neal's team for a couple weeks, a couple things need to change. He has to slide. He has to get down. We talked about that. I'm sure the coaches are going to talk about it as well. You can't have him taking 8-9 shots a game. He has to get down. Listen, pick up those chunk yardage. You have to use your legs because that's part of Daniel Neal's game. That's part of what makes him dangerous. But then when you get those 7-8 yards, slide. You don't need to fight for the extra 2. Okay, unless it's a fourth quarter game-winning drive, then I'm sure he's going to do that. But he needs to stay healthy. And then I think they need to find a few easier throws to get him in rhythm. I don't know if he's we're going to throw it to the hashes guy and take some of the deep shots, because I don't know if that's his arm strength, right? I think probably processing, making quicker decisions, maybe giving him some run pass options, get him out on the edges, bootleg, give him a tight end drag underneath, maybe a deep route on that side. And if nothing's there, use your legs, slide, get 4 yards. I think you have to tailor this a little bit more to what Daniel Neal is best at, which isn't necessarily what Billy Edwards is best at. So all that being said, when I saw the reports, I took a breath. I took a sigh, because it's a big deal. It's a big deal. This team can manage with Daniel Neal for a couple weeks, and then Billy Edwards coming back for the conference slate, maybe coming back for next week. Although, again, I would caution that doesn't happen. I think you have to play it really safe with the guy who's banged up his knee a couple times already in a short span of time. You need him for the conference slate. You need him for Iowa, for Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio State. You need Billy for those games. So I would think the team is going to err on the side of caution. The last thing I'd say is kudos to the team for building in depth at the quarterback spot. We talk a lot about maybe the lack of depth at offensive line, although some of that was impacted by injury as well. This team went out in the offseason. They brought in two quarterbacks that started last year. They brought in, obviously, Billy to be the guy, but then they didn't rest on their laurels. They went and found Daniel Neal, who started an entire season last year, has some athletic tools, has heart, and they brought him in and said, we want to be insulated at this spot. You got to give the team credit for that. A lot of teams probably would have stood pat. You bring in a Billy Edwards, that's a big splash, and then we have a couple young pieces behind him. Let's roll with it. And they did a good job, probably about as good of a job you can at a school like Wisconsin to insulate yourself at the quarterback spot. And in week 1, it already paid dividends, because Danny came in, and again, he made enough plays to win that game. I mean, the defense won the game, but Danny was there. Danny made a couple plays with his legs, a couple plays with his arm. That's a big deal. Having a competent backup quarterback is a huge deal in college football. And the Badgers have that. And you have to give the staff credit for that. All right. We're going to take a second, come back. We're going to get into your comments and also the best players on offense and defense from week 1. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Gametime. What are we doing if we're not using Gametime to buy tickets? I mean, that's like not using a toaster oven to make toast. You got to use the best tools you have to get the things you need done. And Gametime is that tool for you. Whether you're going to Camp Randall like I did, or you're going to go to Kohl Center this summer, or you're going to hit some NFL games up, whatever it is, use Gametime. Don't make it hard on yourself. You're going to get better tickets for less money in quicker spans of time. What are we doing if you're not doing this, right? Gametime gives you pictures of the seats before you sit down. They have flash sales, so sometimes you get better prices the closer the event comes. And you can go to concerts and theater events and all these other things that human beings like to do on planet Earth. Gametime is your gateway, it's your conduit to get to these things. So let's do more of that. Let's go and experience more that life has to offer, and let's use Gametime to get us there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, redeem code LOCKED ONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. By the way, it's still wild that I have to look at the ad read to double check how to spell college. Anyway, let's keep going here. Best players, worst players, offense, defense, week one. Let's talk about it. Per Pro Football Focus, and this is what I used, and then we're going to comment on this. The top 3 graded players on offense: Grant Steck led the way, 94.8. Jake Renfro, number 2, at 80.4. Riley Mullman at 73.8. So he scored 17 points. I think it's telling that, there's nobody. Your kind of backup tight end leads the way in offensive grade, right? It was a bit of a slog. It really was a bit of an offensive slog. Grant Steck, it's encouraging. Had a really nice catch down the seam. I thought he did some nice stuff, some nice things as a blocker as well. Had about 30 snaps. It's encouraging that he's stepping into that role. Grant Steck was a former 4-star tight end. Obviously, we all know we lost Tucker Ashcraft. Steck is the obvious guy there as a player who can play in line, has the size to be a blocker, pretty soft hands, not an elite athlete, but definitely a player that you can use on downs 1 through 3. And maybe a guy you can use to help chip on the edge, to help out with Heinzen or Mullman in some pass protection areas. He had a nice game. And that's a spot where our depth has been hit a little bit. It's been a question for a couple of years now, the tight end depth. Really, the tight end depth has been a question for a bunch of years. Even going back to Jake Ferguson, he just stayed healthy. He never got hurt, but there wasn't a lot behind him. So Steck evolving into this dependable inline tight end that can go down the seam, that can make a contested catch, that's a big deal. So kudos to him. Good game for Steck. Renfro, it is nice to get Renfro kind of back into the groove. I was watching him a couple times when I was watching live. He had a couple really powerful blocks. I thought Renfro was pretty good. By the way, snapping issues, you didn't see any. Or I didn't see any. If there was, that's, again, the benefit of having that experienced center in there. It's a big deal that he's back healthy, because you see struggles in some of the other spots, and we're going to get into that. But you see struggles in some of the other spots. It's nice to have a consistent guy anchoring the middle of that line in Renfro. And then Riley Mullman was the 3rd highest graded player on offense at right tackle. Again, I think Mullman is who Mullman is, which is a really steady, consistent veteran presence on the right side that maybe isn't an elite athlete and maybe isn't quite as powerful as you would expect, but he's really solid. You don't have to worry about Riley Mullman. Riley Mullman is going to do what he needs to do. He's consistent. He understands the role, understands the assignment, and he graded as the 3rd most consistent, best player on this offense. At the bottom of Pro Football Focus, did Daniel O'Neal at 44.2, Leighton Nelson at 51.7, who came in for Davis Heinzen at left tackle, and then Billy Edwards at 51.9. So at the bottom of the list, you have your 2 quarterbacks and the offense lineman you brought in to replace another offense lineman that also struggled in Davis Heinzen. We talked about Davis Heinzen during the live post-game recap reaction show, and we'll throw some comments up here as well. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't get to some of these comments here. Yeah, Chris said likely sprained MCL. Steelbird said not an ACL or Achilles. Going back to Billy Edwards, yes. Like, huge good news on Billy Edwards. And I am stoked that I am so relieved. Again, I was sitting next to somebody when this injury happened, and the guy next to me was just like, oh no. Like, it was like the Waterboy meme, like, oh no, we suck again, and it wasn't that. Like, we don't suck again, anything like that. But you could just tell it was like a gut punch. So yeah, awesome news there. A couple people saying, Jesse said I wouldn't play him until Maryland. Sean, I wouldn't play him until Maryland. Yeah, 100%. Ben brings up a good point that I kind of hit on as well. Good news, but now there's probably 0 run threat from Billy. Billy is a guy who has some mobility. He can hurt you a little bit in times. This probably takes some of that aspect away from him. All right, let's go back to the Pro Football Focus grades. Bottom 3 again: Billy Edwards, Daniel O'Neal, Leighton Nelson. Daniel O'Neal You look at his grade, probably impacted heavily by a couple of the incompletions. He skipped a couple passes. He Danny O'Neil has to, and I'm going to cut Danny O'Neil grace here. You're a backup quarterback. You were coming in. You weren't getting the number one reps. I can't, obviously, I've never been in this situation, but I can't imagine in the middle of the game going in under the lights, Camp Randall. I feel like and he's still a young quarterback. He's still a guy who hasn't had a ton of reps at the college level anyway. It felt like he was pulling the string on a couple throws. He was aiming it rather than just letting it rip. And you saw that on a couple of the screen passes. It felt like he aimed it a little bit. He had one to Mason, I think one to Yak. Both of those should be completed. And if you're Danny O'Neil, if you're that archetype of quarterback, you have to hit those passes, right? I think the deep ones, if you get, it's more of a bonus with him. But you have to be really good in the intermediate to the flat. You have to be really good throwing the screens. You have to be really good on those crossers and the mesh routes and the timing stuff. And you have to be smart with your feet, which for the most part, Danny was pretty good with his feet outside of a couple big shots I think he took, right? Which I understand. He's a gamer. But he's got to hit those screen passes. He's got to hit those layup passes. Even if it gets you 3, 4, 5 yards, instead of a 2nd and 10, you're 2nd and 5. And then you can use the running game. Then you can use the play action stuff. Then you can use some of the jet sweep stuff. But when you miss those, then you get 2nd and 10. Then it just gets difficult. I thought there were a few moments he held the ball a little too long as well, maybe trying to improvise a little bit in the pocket. But I think some of those things are going to come with time. He's a young quarterback. Young quarterbacks develop. But yeah, he's got to be better. I think some of those throws, the interception, another near interception, are probably driving his Pro Football Focus grade. Billy Edwards is interesting. So Edwards had a 51.9 grade. He was 6 of 13 in the game. I've been talking to Rugiet and Justin, who are hot. They thought Billy looked pretty good. I was a little more lukewarm. And listen, that doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong or vice versa. We always say this, my opinion isn't the right one by any stretch. It's just mine. I thought he looked a little off, Billy. A couple of those deep throws. I think he's got to be a little more accurate when he gets those opportunities. And I think one of those might've been a pass interference, maybe. I think when he gets those opportunities, though, he needs to give his receivers more of a chance to get it. And it didn't always happen for him. So, yeah, I get the grade. And then Leighton Nelson is the other lowest graded one on here, 51.7 coming in. Again, Leighton Nelson, I would also cut graced for. He's been dinged up coming in the middle of a game. I would be curious to see what he might look like as he continues to get healthy. Richard Oliver says 3 throwaways to avoid sacks, 2 defensive pass interferences not called. Yeah, like I definitely think that first one was obviously pass interference that didn't get called. I typically kind of like it when they hold the flags, by the way. I'm not a big fan of calling every ticky-tack kind of touch pass interference, as long as it's consistent, right? Be consistent on both ends. I thought for the most part they did that, but I thought that first one was definitely pass interference. I thought the one to Vinny Anthony, when he threw it, when I first saw it, the deep one kind of in the end zone, I thought it was pass interference. On the replay, I don't really think it was. I thought he overthrew it a little bit. And make no mistake, like this offense is better with Billy Edwards. I'm just saying I don't think he was great week 1 up until the point he got hurt. I don't think he was fully locked in. And some of that's the offensive line. Like the line's got to be better. And if the line is better, the quarterbacks are naturally going to be a little better as well. Scott said he's too busy running. Richard says the fullback dive is back. Yeah, that was cool. Like we knew that was coming. Ben also says if they call a pass interference, Billy's stats would look much better. Probably. I just hate to go through if this had happened and that happened. I mean, ultimately he was 6 of 13, right? And I talked specifically week 1, this offense has to look a certain way. Otherwise, I'm going to ask questions. And I want to be honest with what I said and not loop back and maybe find reasons to move my goalposts a little bit. They didn't look good enough on offense. And that was from Billy starting all the way to Daniel O'Neil finishing. You scored 17 points against Miami of Ohio, which Miami of Ohio is a good MAC team. I've said that. But you scored 17 points, and one of those touchdowns was set up for you by Preston Zachman. Up until the point when Billy Edwards left, we had 3 points, and he was, again, 6 of 13. Even if you add in a couple of those pass interference calls, maybe he's 7 of 13. I think you're still expecting a little bit more, considering the level of competition and considering some of the weapons you brought in. I think we feel pretty good about Vinny. We like Tretch. We like Mason. We like Ballard. We like Hilton. We like Dillon. We like Dupree. The offensive line wasn't good enough. And please call me too pessimistic, whatever it is. Like, that's completely fair too. Again, this is just my opinion on it. I was underwhelmed by the offense. Now the defense was awesome. Defense was awesome, and I think the offense can get better as well. All right, let's take a quick second here. Let's get into the 3 highest graded defensive players per Pro Football Focus, and then a couple big picture thoughts. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. Who is the highest graded defensive player? But first, today's episode brought to you by our good friends over at Upside. Y'all, are you still paying full price for gas? Is that like still a thing you're doing? Because you don't have to, right? You can get some money back. Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now, and you can start earning cash at the pump. You're going to be there anyway, so why not get some cash back? Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL. Get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already need. First, I thought maybe this is too good to be true. Maybe it's not really what it's all about, but it's totally legit. Like, I used it on a recent road trip. Real people are getting paid to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, e-gift card, Amazon, whatever it is. It's simple. It's easy. Don't let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app today using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon boost. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Disclaimer: offers do vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. All right. So one other quick thing here. Locked On is doing something great. We want to get the community a little more involved, and we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. They put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and really kind of help make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you for helping us out. Okay, let's get the 3 highest graded defensive players, and then any questions, thoughts, big picture things you guys got? Am I too pessimistic, negative? Dude, let me know. Again, I loved what the defense did. And let's get back to that. The 3 highest graded players on defense per Pro Football Focus. Number 1 should surprise nobody. Preston Zachman, 93.7. This is a guy Rajiv always talks about. He's just so steady. He is so steady. Also, you know what gets lost with Zachman though? He had the 2 picks, obviously almost housed the one. Set the Badgers up for a score on the doorstep, but he's also just a great tackler. Like, he doesn't miss tackles. He's assignment sure. He's a ball hawk. He anticipates. You can tell the film studies there. But then he comes up and he'll pop somebody. He wraps up. He doesn't miss tackles. He has great angles. He's just a rock steady player on the back 7, and you need that in college football with all the passing attacks you're going to find and all the kind of the mad scientist offensive coordinators you're going to play against that will disguise their route trees and bunch here, quad here. You need a guy like Zachman to set the chess pieces on defense and to see everything unfold in front of them and then make the right decisions. Because there's nothing worse than a gambling safety who gambles wrong. Zachman is a gambler who knows when to fold them and knows when to hold them. And yeah, great piece of this defense. 2 picks to start the season. Number 2, again, this was no surprise if you listen to me all off season, the Riger Tiger, Mason Riger, 89.9. You just can't block him one-on-one. He's too relentless. I think that's his biggest thing. It's the relentlessness. Obviously, he's twitched up. He's athletic. He's got some length, some burst. But he's just relentless. He will not stay blocked, and it's almost like a worm in your hand. Just keeps wriggling until it gets free. And he's really good. Had a sack, had several other forced pressures, had a couple tackles where he's coming down the line of scrimmage to track down a running back. He's a total package. Mason Riger, if he stays healthy, he's going to be in the NFL. And then number 3, Parker Peterson, 87.5. I thought he looked really good. He is a big, wide barrel-bodied guy who's just going to stuff up the run. And he's part of that defensive line rotation that completely shut Miami of Ohio down. And that is a Miami of Ohio team that we talked to Ted Brennan, who was running a Miami of Ohio podcast. They love their running back. They love Daquan Finn's ability to manipulate defenses and get around the edges. And there was just nothing there. And we can talk about it was a MAC team. This MAC team would have ran for more yards against Wisconsin last year. And there's definite progress there. I was really excited about the front seven. I can't wait. I'm going to do a deep dive on the front seven. So look for that one coming up. Okay. Let's get some questions, thoughts. Anything you guys got? Pete says, resting Billy a week also gets O'Neal deeper work in case we need to use him later. Use this as an opportunity for him to increase his reps. Yeah, I love that. I think it makes so much sense. Again, I understand that I'm advocating for a player to lose a game of college football that they don't get a lot of, but in the big picture, you're going to beat Middle Tennessee State with Danny O'Neal. So I think you get Danny more reps. And then you really give Billy an opportunity to get as healthy as possible for the grind, for the stretch run. And then you make a game time decision against Bama. If he's not 100%, I don't think that's a tricky one, because I'm never going to advocate go to Brian Denny and don't throw your best punch. I'm never going to advocate that's just a punt game. Who cares? It's not a punt game. It's not a who cares. You're going to Brian Denny. You're going to be on a national stage. People are going to talk about this game. It's an opportunity to showcase the motion W. So I think if Billy's close, I'm playing him against Bama, but I'm not sure. Yes, P. That's where I'm at. I want to see our best quarterback against Bama. I don't want to go into the Bama week and say, well, I don't really know. Billy could play, but I'm too scared of Bama, and we're going to lose anyway. Then what's the point of it? Yeah, no. If he's ready, I would let him roll against Bama. Now, if he's at like 75% against Bama, then yeah, that's an obvious thing. Like if he's clearly hampered, he doesn't trust his mobility, then absolutely you don't play him on the road against that Bama defense. But if he can go and it's comfortable and it's like, no, this is good, we're ready, you play him. You play him against Bama because it's football and you throw your punches. That's where I'm at. I could be wrong, but that's where I'm at. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Any guys, questions, thoughts? Zach Bartz. First of all, Zach Bart's a great dude. Do you think Brunner kicks out the left tackle and Benz comes in at left guard this week? So I don't. I mean, if you listen to this show in the offseason, I was kind of a proponent of, I thought they should have kicked Brunner to left tackle, and they should have, whether it was Heinzen, Benchwall, Kadenko, I think they should have found a guard to work on the inside and put Brunner at left tackle. But I don't know if I would want them to do it now after really solidifying Brunner as a guard, after spending all of Platteville and Madison fall practice repping him at guard and really getting him comfortable in that spot. I don't know if before week 2 I want to shift him. It might feel like a bit of an emergency move. I like that they built some cohesion on the inside. Again, I would have done it earlier, right? And what do I know? I'm not an offensive line coach. Maybe I'm not saying that fixes anything or everything, but I don't think I do it now, right? Because you made your decision, you repped it. I think maybe it's Nelson. Like maybe Nelson is in a bit of a battle with Davis Heinzen, or maybe Heinzen takes a big step this week. Maybe Heinzen looks at the film and they figure some things out and they game plan around it a little bit, where we're going to have a little more help there. But no, I definitely understand the question, Zach. I think you kind of leave Brunner where it is now and see if you can figure out tackle, because you've repped Brunner so much on the inside that it almost feels like like opportunity lost if you move him now. Let's see, some more questions. Zachary Ryan says top 3 on defense that I watch: Reiger, Cheeks, and Zachman. So 2 of those were on the Pro Football Focus list. I think Cheeks was 5th on the rankings. I don't have the list up in front of me, but Cheeks was awesome. Ricky Bobby says, do you think the offense looks so bad because of the line? Running backs ran hard, had a few drops, but receivers overall looked decent. Most importantly, first year with a new offense. I think the line was the biggest impediment. Yes, Ricky. I think the line was the biggest impediment to the offense being cohesive, but I don't think it was just the line. I thought there were some missed throws by the quarterbacks. I did think Billy had a chance to hit a couple guys deep and overthrew them. I thought you had Vinny Anthony with a drop along the left sideline on what would have been a 15-yard gain. I thought the running backs generally ran pretty hard. I really did. I didn't think there were a ton of holes there. But one point I made with Rajiv is sometimes you also need your playmakers to make playmaker plays. If Dylan Jones is who we think he's going to be, sometimes you need him to bust one. If Jaden Ballard is kind of who we think he potentially could be, maybe you need him to go up and come down with a 60-40 ball in a post play. So I think it's everything. I think it's cumulative. I don't think the receivers were great, although I don't think they were a problem. I don't think the quarterbacks are great. But yeah, I do think the line was the biggest issue. And I'm not sure how they're going to fully fix that. I don't know if there's a great answer. That might be the answer, that there's not a great answer, unfortunately. But I would be super curious to see if Nelson starts getting more reps at left tackle, if they do consider kicking Brunner out, or if Heinzen starts to improve, if that's the solution. But they got to figure out something. You can't stand pat and play at that level with the schedule coming up. It's not going to work. Richard Oliver said play clock management was rough as well. I definitely talked about a couple timeouts they burned. I didn't love. I think there might be an element of the backup quarterback. It probably throws off some of the communication, some of the timing, some of the packages they had in play. So I will cut some grace there, but you can't waste timeouts in close games. And we talked about it, so I'm not going to belabor that point, but that's something they have to be careful with. Eli, the Haywood injury really hurt us. Yeah. Richard, Vaco's hitting from 42 is nice. I agree. That's a great point. And something I didn't even really talk about. Huge, right? Huge for confidence. Again, all we've asked for the Badgers is have somebody who can consistently hit from like 45 in, and then semi-consistently from like 45 to 52. Anything past that I'm not expecting anybody to be banging 54-yarders on the regular. But from 42, can you consistently hit? From 47, can you mostly hit? You need a guy to do those type of things in close games, especially if this is going to be a team maybe geared around the defense running game. It's going to be closer games. The importance of being able to knock field goals through, vital. So, yeah, that was great. That's a great point, Richard. I think this one is a good one here. Zachary Ryan, offense didn't look good because they were loading the box with 10 guys, and the only passing we did was play action, so we didn't give O'Neal a lot of time. I noticed this early in the game, even on the first drive, Miami of Ohio was daring us to throw, whether it was Edwards or O'Neal. I think they obviously dared us a little bit more with O'Neal, but they were asking us to hit him deep. We don't think you can consistently beat us with deep shots, and we didn't. We had opportunities. You had a couple shots to Vinny that potentially could have been there, but they got to hit some of those. They have to hit some plays to back the defense off, because Miami, Ohio came in with a game plan similar to defenses that played us last year. We're going to stack the box. We don't want you to run the ball. We dare you to beat us vertically. And much like we weren't able to do it in week one. Some of that's offensive line issue. Some of that is we were just a little bit off on a couple plays. Some of it was there was a pass interference call that wasn't called. Like, all of that factors in. But ultimately, none of it matters if you don't do it, right? At the end of the year, you don't get bonus points because, well, that would have worked, but there was a missed PI. Or it would have worked, but the pass protection wasn't there. The ultimate football and like many things in sports is a kind of a end game. It's kind of like a totality type of a equation. You either did or you didn't. Those other things don't matter. So pass interference, sure, your receivers got to fight for the ball better. Is that fair? No, but they got to hit some deep shots to back teams off, and it just is what it is. Honcho, join late. Moving Brunner to the outside weakens the middle that couldn't get Yak over the goal line on short yardage. I would always flip it around like this. If we can't run the ball in short yardage through the middle, then what's the point of having Brunner there anyway? Right? If that, and listen, I'm not going to base moving players off 2 plays near the goal line, right? Like that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the interior of the offense line needs to be good enough to outweigh the potential benefit of moving Joe Brunner to left tackle. And if we're not able to run between like the A gap in first and goal, second and goal against Miami, Ohio, well, maybe our interior line isn't so steamrolling anyway, and moving Brunner to left tackle and putting Kadenko in at guard doesn't change much, but it gives you stability at left tackle. I'm just saying, that was literally the first thought I had is like, well, what's the point of having Brunner inside if we can't run inside anyway? But again, like, that's making too much out of like a very isolated play in one game of the season. So I'm not going to do that, but they got to figure out the offensive line in general. Whatever that is, that's going to be on Blas. It's going to be on Grimes. There's a lot of smart offensive line guys on this coaching staff that I do believe in, that I believe are good offensive line coaches. They're going to go to work this week, and I hope to see improvement next week. All right, let's wrap it up there on Wisconsin. Appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. Had a great time in Camp Randall. Met a bunch of awesome people. Always fun. Camp Randall's incredible. It's just amazing. I'll go to every game if I could. 1-0, bunch more content coming up this week on Wisconsin, and we will definitely talk later.